Hello everybody, Stuart here. Welcome to my second video on dice and dual senses. This is one that I did mention in my first video, which is a revisit of Dragons Dogma Dark Arisen. This is now 12 years old. It was released in 2012 on the PlayStation 3. It did have a remaster on the PlayStation 4 in 2017, which is actually the one that I am currently playing. The original game didn't have the Dark Arisen tagline. That was actually an expansion that was released as part of the PlayStation 4 update. The original was just called Dragons Dogma. Now, the reason I wanted to revisit that game at the moment is because Dragons Dogma 2 releases on the 22nd of March. If you're watching this after the 22nd of March 2024, then Dragons Dogma 2 is out, so if you do like what you see here, you'll most likely find either a new video on my channel showing you Dragons Dogma 2, or you will find that the game is available and is definitely worth considering. There will be a video on Dragons Dogma 2 on my channel, by the way. It's just might take a couple of days, so if you're watching this the day after the 22nd, the video might not yet be up. So, what does Dragons Dogma entail? Now, the first video I did on this channel was a look at the character creator, so I've kind of skipped that section for this video. There's no point in looking at it. The new one is actually much better, so looking at the old one wouldn't really help. I will be looking at the pawn customization later, and again, the new character creator does allow you to create the visual appearance of a pawn as well. I'm not sure whether it includes all of the customization options that were in the original game in Dragons Dogma 2, but we will see when it releases, and of course I will be covering that in my later video. What I want to show in this video is just a little of what you could be expecting in Dragons Dogma 2. Now, there have been videos released on it, specifically trailers, but this is obviously from a gamer's perspective and is being shown on a PlayStation console, whereas most of the ones that you may have seen would possibly be on PC anyway, which is what most YouTube videos seem to focus on. So the game itself is loosely an action RPG. It's definitely an RPG, although you don't have stats that you update in the normal way. I actually can't quite remember how to do it, if I'm being perfectly honest, because it has been a long time since I last played this game. I believe you have to do it at a rest station or an inn. You can't do it while you're out and about. It's one of the quirky things about this game, of which there are many, by the way. The main premise is it is, as I say, an action RPG, so there is a lot of combat in it, but it's kind of a mishmash of different genres thrown into one. So you have a little bit of Monster Hunter in here. This game is made by Capcom, so it's quite understandable that they do include a bit of Monster Hunter in it. The bit of Monster Hunter they include is the fact you can basically climb on enemies. You do have dragons, and you do have different weapon types, and they do affect how you actually fight with those weapon types. I would say the main similarity that this game has is with Shadow of the Colossus, because, as I just mentioned, you can climb enemies, and you can climb big enemies. You can actually grab hold of smaller enemies and hold them for your party to attack. Likewise, your party can hold them for you to attack, which can be quite useful to make some interesting combos. So the main draw of this game, which is different to most others, is the fact that you are playing a completely single-player game. There is no multiplayer at all, but there is still a partial requirement for an always-on online connection, and the reason for that is because you have a group of followers called pawns. Now, I currently have one following me, which you get right at the beginning of the game. You can't pick who it is. He's literally just gets dropped into your lap, and to be honest, I have changed him every single time at the earliest opportunity, just because I like to have a party constructed how I want it and not any other way. And I like my pawns to look like I want them to as well, so that's the other reason. But you do get one, so Rook, that you will see running around me on screen there, is actually the pawn that I have inherited. And what they are AI controlled NPCs that learn missions and can help you as you go around. It's a very rough approximation to a multiplayer squad, in effect. The benefit of the pawn system is later on in the game you can actually send them out to help other people. You don't lose access to them at all. All it means is when you log off, if you sleep on a bed as you log off, your pawn will actually be released for other people to use. Now, you can log back in and you can still use your pawn. It doesn't mean it's not available for you. It just means that your pawn will be learning things as they go. And every time the other person logs off, even if your pawn is still in their party, the experience they have earned during their playthrough will get uploaded to your pawn. So you can both be using the pawn at exactly the same time, but you won't get the experience, you won't get the benefit of the experience until the other person logs off, and so do you, basically. So the rest period is basically where they impart their experience and learn, and then can give that experience, knowledge I should say, rather than experience, give that knowledge to you. Now, I believe they can level up when they're being used by somebody else, but I can't quite remember, so it's definitely something to keep an eye out in Dragons Dogma 2. Now, normally when I go through ARPGs and I'm doing kind of a look at them, I will be looking at the graphics, the sound and everything, but I feel that's kind of a bit unfair to do that for this particular video, mainly because, as I said at the beginning, this is a 12-year-old game, so it's not the best looking. It's not bad looking by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not the best looking. It does have some old, antiquated mechanics. That's not to say they won't appear in the new game, because it is Capcom and they do have some quirky ways. They may not, so again, when I do my new video, I will cover what changes there have been made. But the things that hopefully will transfer are the pawn system, definitely, because that is the thing that makes Dragon's Dogma so different to everything else. That needs to transfer, and I'm pretty certain it does. The ability to grab onto enemies, again, I am almost convinced that that does, and I have seen some videos in the past couple of weeks where they have shown that there's actually a better ability with that now. Previously, when you were grabbing onto flying creatures, especially the griffin, which you will encounter later on, you could only go a certain distance before you basically fell off. Now you can keep hold of it, as long as your stamina holds out, of course. You can keep hold of it for the entirety of the map, and basically fly around the entire world, which is quite nice. Now, one of the other things is the ability to cut off individual parts of the creature's body. So, for instance, if you are attacking an ogre, which you will actually see later on in this gameplay video, you can actually cut off their tusks and things like that. It might actually be a cyclops, not an ogre. But you can cut off their tusks, and you can use those later on as reagents. Again, very similar to Monster Hunter. The RPG elements are quite unique in this. So you will level up, as I mentioned. You can only level up at certain locations, I believe, which are inns or rest areas. And you can put points and learn special skills. Now, those special skills, after a certain number of levels, you can actually change your vocation. So you start with 3. You start with fighter, mage, or stalker, which is basically a rogue, and you can merge those into like hybrid classes later on. So you can learn to do a lot more things. There's more of that in the newer game, in Dragons Dogma 2, and they have refined it, obviously, as they would need to for this day and age. But it's still a very, very good system. Now on screen at the moment, you are going to see an interaction with a Spirit Stone. I'm going to call it a Spirit Stone because I can't quite remember what its name is. It could be a Sky Stone. One or the other. You'll see in a second. No, you're not going to see in a second. Basically, this is your portal where you can start talking to and recruiting pawns. So after you've done the tutorial area, which is what you're seeing on screen, you then have access to these and you can change out your pawns whenever you want. The only one you can't change is your own custom pawn. That is always in your party. So make sure that your custom pawn is exactly what you want, because if it isn't, you're going to be stuck with it until you either create a new character or stop playing the game. You can only have one save, so you cannot have multiple characters with multiple different builds. As soon as you create a new character, it will overwrite your existing character, so do bear that in mind. Now that's going to be exactly the same for the new one, and the developers have confirmed that, so it's not something that you're going to be able to escape, unfortunately. Animations have been improved slightly. I'm not going to say they are 100% better, but they have been improved slightly, as is collision detection, etc. But we're about to go into a battle where you'll see some of the mechanics I was talking about. So you will get to see a fight against the Cyclops. Wasn't an ogre, I was correct, it is a Cyclops. And you will see that I can jump up onto the enemy and do various other things. Now, this I love. You can actually pick up these monsters. So if I grab hold of him, and I can kick him off the edge. That's a perfectly valid way of killing an enemy. Bigger creatures, obviously, you can't do that, but what you can do is you can jump onto them, grab hold of them, and as I said previously, as long as your stamina maintains, you can, in essence, climb up the enemy. So in a second on screen you will see that. I just wanted to dispatch the smaller enemies first. So here we go, climbing up. Now you do have to be careful, because you are still affected by physics. It's actually quite a decent game in that regard. So if you are on the back of a creature and he starts swinging around, you will start grabbing on for dear life, so you won't be able to do anything else. If you are on his foot, for instance, and he stamps down, you will get knocked off. And if you're on his back, he will be able to pick you up and throw you, or even bite you. So there are various different things you have to take into consideration. Now, the intro sequence before you create your own character, because there is one, does include a fight against a chimera, which, for those who don't know, is a mythical beast that is part lion, part snake, and part goat. There are different variations, but that's what it is in Dragon's Dogma. You can cut off individual portions, and individual portions do different things. So the chimera's tail, the snake for instance, is what allows it to cast magic. So as soon as you cut the tail off, it can no longer cast magic. And that's a very good way of tactically fighting in this game. Now, just for the last portion of this, I wanted to show you the actual creation section for the pawn. Now, this is exactly the same initially as your own character, so I'll show you a couple of things. You get to pick a number of different names. You pick your own name, but then there's a moniker, and the moniker is what's going to show up in when they're using parental controls, and I think it also shows up in other places as well, but I might be wrong. So if you're using parental controls, it will only show up the moniker, simply because they don't want people to be using a name that is going to cause problems. So if you're using a personal name, it might not show up. It might just be the moniker, basically. But either way, you get to select voice type. You can completely change the body, the look of the face, colour, hair colour, everything. The same as your main character. I'm going to skip over that part and just go to the finished pawn that I had created. And the reason I've done that is to show you the later stages. So your pawn's AI interaction in Dragons Dogma Dark Arisen is created by answering some questions. And these are just trying to determine what type of assistant you want. So do you want an all-out, just ignore what you're saying, just go and attack things? Do you want somebody to defend you? Do you want somebody to just give you support? All of those sorts of things are dealt with in this section. It's quite difficult to know exactly what each of these means, but if you keep an eye on the bars on the left-hand side, you can kind of get what's going on. So if you want a medicant, which I took to be somebody who's going to heal you, then you can select the answers, which increases that medicant bar as much as possible. So you can see that as I swap those bars do move. So magic potion that prefers youth is going to give me relatively high medicant, but perfect spouse also gives high medicant. So you can really just tailor exactly what you want it to look like. This will quite heavily affect how they act in battles as well, which is important. Now these are the three starting classes: your fighter, your rogue in effect, and your mage, and you select those for your pawn exactly the same as you would select for your main character. So once you've selected your pawn, he will spawn, and as with most games like this, you'll have a lovely little cutscene as you're introduced to the world. Now I am really looking forward to Dragons Dogma 2. There are some other games that I'm also looking forward to that I will be covering on this channel, and some that I'm really looking forward to that I probably won't because it's the wrong genre. But either way, I hope you have found this video useful or fun. If you have, please make sure you click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new and haven't yet, and please do make sure you share this video. You all take care, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye for now.